Welcome, 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 everybody, to the Dr. Jeff Experience. I'm so glad to have you this evening. I don't know about you, but here in the it's a rainy, cold, blustery type day, blustery type evening, but the sun did come out this evening, and we're just glad to be alive. Listen, I'm not going to waste any time. We've got a guest tonight that, matter of fact, let me just go ahead and give you full disclosure. What we're doing tonight is a result of this gentleman and some talks with him. He has done a tremendous job with me during some very pivotal times. And let me just bring him on. My man, Dr. J. Gideon Winfrey is here.
Yes,
he is a therapist and the CEO of Valiant Therapy. So glad to have you, my brother.
Oh, brother, always an opportunity. Couldn't ever relinquish an opportunity to be in your presence, brother, and just share. And I just want to, it's only right to first and foremost congratulate you on your recent attaining of the highest terminal degree possible and all that you've done and you served, brother. It's just been a blessing to just sit, on the sideline and watch you run this race, brother. So I'm excited for what you're going to do for the next 50 and 60 years, because God promised us 120.
Hey,
so
man,
I'm with it. A portion in that, good brother. So thank you so much for the opportunity.
I'm with it. Along with me tonight, I got my other partner, Sakari, is here with me. He's keeping me company, making sure I'm good. But listen, if you guys are watching, we are streaming live, Facebook Live, YouTube Live, Instagram Live. If you want to make any comments, any questions, anything, just tune on in. We're going to jump right into this. My brother has been swimming in the deep waters. I don't know if any of you keep in touch with him. You ought to follow him on Facebook Live. And he also does a show called Sound Mind. Sound Mind. And that is through Hope TV, through the House of Hope. But he has been swimming in deep water of relationships. And let me tell you this. Let me just say this from the beginning. I believe in Jesus and therapy.
Amen.
And therapy is why we are here tonight. Okay? This is going to be interesting tonight. But we are thankful. And Dr. Winfrey, tell me about, man, what brought you into that side of the pool when it talks about relationships?
The funny thing, good brother, is that I asked myself that question, like, how did I get here? Which is always the first indication that it's God, because it's not part of your plan at all. I saw a need, because I always believe, and I say this in therapy, God is relational in nature. And so the very thing that is part of that creation is us being that first extension in creation. And so we're relational. And so as I've gone through this 28, almost 30-year career, I started seeing the correlation between, like, part of what I call the garden concept, which is God's original design for us, which is relational. Everything that we do is relationship based, and working with men and seeing how a lot of the deficits that come in society, in our marriages, in our family, how it pointed back to men. And I started doing a lot of research and diving there in the role of husband, purpose, functionality of men. And I saw this gaping hole when it came to relationship, as far as the mandate, the dominion mandate, the being fruitful and multiplying, subduing and replenishing. So then I started seeing how, no matter how you turn it, the issues come back to our relationships. The marriages that we enter, the marriages that we shouldn't enter, what we saw growing up, not asking questions. So it all kind of started as just one domino, and I started seeing it all kind of fall in place. And interestingly enough, I tell people from a calling and an anointing perspective that I believe that God's word speaks to you through whatever your gift is. So for me, being a psychologist and a therapist, I see everything through those lenses. So as I'm going through his word, I'm seeing modalities, theories, causations, relationship. And so when I started pulling it all together, I said, man, the first covenant that he created was marriage. And so if we got that right, think of how it impacts all other aspects. So I saw the psychology, the sociology, and the theology. And next thing you know, the deeper I went, the deeper I wanted to go. And I started applying it with my population, because most of my population are believers. Mm-hmm. And by giving them, I say, I take the sacred to influence the secular, and it works. And so just always wanting to find out, what is it that God originally created? Because we hear about these concepts in the church, and I love the church, grew up in the church, the institution of the church I love. But one of the challenges with the church is we're good at telling people what to do, but not how to do it.
Yeah, that's so big. That's so big. It's interesting how you have married all three of those entities mm-hmm. into your practice. Mm-hmm. I know that from past instances where I have been in attendance when you've spoken to the men, mm-hmm. man, you dropped some jewels. And it's interesting because I think 2 weeks ago, my wife and I were together doing a Dr. Jeff experience, and it is one of the highest viewed podcasts that we did. And it had to do with relationships mm-hmm. and boundaries when it came to our adult children.
Yes.
A lot of people don't understand that when their children get of a certain age, there needs to be some boundaries. Mm-hmm. We're still their parents, but we still need to respect them in the sense of you got to give them space, and that's a juggle in itself. Mm-hmm. And also with your own relationships,
right?
So it's that balance, Doc. How do you see that?
Well, it's interesting because I speak on that extensively. Because a lot of times and it's interesting. I love the concept you talked about, marrying those three together. And God's word tells us, particularly what to intermarry, but we're supposed to intermarry like-minded, like-hearted, like-spirited. But in that, intermarrying, it kind of in and of itself, it puts boundaries in place. And I love to use the example of how the Dead Sea and the Red Sea, they stop at a certain point.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Say that again, would you?
See, the Dead Sea and the Red Sea, they correspond. They come to a point where they stop. Like you see the water.
Wow.
You can see how the fresh water, the salt water of the Red Sea mixes with the water of the Dead Sea, and you can literally look and tell where the water stops. And
that's right.
I like to use in therapy how God himself said that there are boundaries to be put in place. That's why we have night. That's why we have day. That's why we have sea. That's why we have land. So there are boundaries in place, and boundaries are there to keep things in, but also keep things out. And a lot of times we take these mindsets with us in terms of our relationships that say, everybody that got us there are supposed to be part of the next wave of once we get there. So no, we can dispel that myth just by looking at the children of Israel in terms of that first generation didn't get in. Why? Because their mindset didn't reflect where they were going.
Mm.
And
so
yes.
Go ahead. No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
And that's it. And that's why when you see in that Old Testament how God is so adamant about, each time he told the children of Israel to take a different piece of land, he was so adamant about you have to destroy everything that's in there and you can't leave anything, because where I'm taking you, if there's a trace of the old, you won't embrace the new. So that's boundary right there. That's boundary right there.
Wow. So what I hear from there is, we often talk about the brothers, going into relationships and having a serious relationship. You got to get rid of the old.
Absolutely.
That means sometimes you got to cleanse this thing.
Oh, absolutely.
You got to go in there and purge, man. Those old flames and all that kind of stuff, man.
Absolutely. One of the sayings, good brother, that I use, and I think I used it when we had our symposium with the men. Planes don't land on crowded runways.
Whoa, there you go, man. There you go. dropping
Yeah.
bombs.
Yeah, planes don't land on crowded runways. And
Man,
from a
let's unpack that, man.
Yeah, from a relational perspective, I use that therapeutically to illustrate how, if you're wanting God to send that special person in your life, okay, I liken it as, okay, you want Air Force One to land. Air Force One does not land when there's a lot of movement in the air or anywhere around.
100%.
If there's anywhere on that runway, because what it's carrying. So a lot of times we don't have the relationships or quality we want because we got a lot of little 727s or planes that ain't really moved. Now we saying, hey, I want you to land here. I send the signal that you can come here. But the way that I see that relationally is like God will give you the blessing. But what happens is the plane is coming, but your runway is full. So what we have to do is say, okay, I got to get rid of anything that could send a message that I'm not prepared. Or as I like to say in therapy, you have to have the maturity to manage the miracle that you're asking for. Mm-hmm. If you don't have the maturity for it, why would God take a whole healed individual and send them your way when you haven't done the work? So in that, likening that whole plane example, now, I believe a lot of times relationally, God has sent people into our lives. And just like with an airplane that can't land because of the runway being full, people have circled, waiting on us to get right. Opportunities have circled, waiting on us to get right. But then all of a sudden what happens is it's only going to circle so many times before it ends up going to another airport.
Wow. Listen, guys, I hope y'all getting this. I should have warned you in advance. You need to get a pen and a pad because Dr. Winfrey is going to drop some jewels on you. If you're watching us tonight, YouTube Live, Facebook Live, Instagram, go ahead, man, and drop your question, your comment. What are we? We're just a couple of minutes in, and man, I don't know what to say, man. So we talk somewhat about social media and what social media has done to relationships, for relationships. I talk more about what it has done to relationships.
Yes.
How do you see that in your practice?
Oh man, it's unfortunate because social media is just a stream of comments and people's sentiments. And a lot of times the first thing I have to tell my population is they'll come in carrying things that come from people that, and I say this respectfully, people that aren't credentialed to give you advice. You can take bits and pieces, but I like to tell people that, let me say it from my perspective. Anything I say in therapy, I can point you back to the source that I got. So it's not just me talking. It's not just me ranting, because one of the things you see on social media is a lot of people are talking, but they're not giving solutions. In therapy, we come up with, we come up with solutions. Plans. We come here to do heavy lifting and furniture moving. So we're not going to be talking for an hour or 2 hours and then walk away with a heightened feeling, but we don't have any resolution. So a lot of times that's what social media does, and people carry that in their relationships. But then also social media also it's a robber of intimacy. It's a robber of intimacy. A lot of my couples, because one of my strategies with my couples that I use is I would see my couples together, but then I always spin them off one-on-one because I know some of the things that they need to say, they're not going to say in front of each other. And so I give them that space to be able to say whatever, and then we choose how we want to integrate it into the couples or the marital session. But a lot of times there's complaint about, how much time is wasted, about, hey, a person will be on social media for hours, and then you want to give your spouse or your mate the last 15 minutes initial. I call it your tired 15 minutes, the last 15 minutes of the day, but you spent 8-9 hours on social media, and you'll go back and forth with, people that you don't know, but then also your connectivity to people. Now I see this a lot where people have gotten caught up in emotional infidelity because social media allows you to stay what I call lingering. People linger on social media. So, and I'll say this as a married man, one of the first things that I made sure that I did in clearing my own runway, my charge, and I tell my men this, and I think I've having a large male population that comes to me, is to put themselves in a position that no woman can come to your woman and show a screenshot or a DM from the minute that she walked into life and you got serious about her. And I tell my wife all the time, no woman has ever been able to walk up to her and say, hey, from this day on, you know, your husband or your man said this, that, and the third to me. And so helping men to understand, you got to get rid of that, because when you interact with a person, there's a frequency that you create with a person.
Doc.
So when you get a relationship, you know how I am, good doctor.
Doc, man. Let me tell you, I need a fan in here, man. It's getting hot, man. It's getting hot.
I got to take advantage of the platform while I got it, brother, because I want people.
Hold on, man. You did a drive by. I got to take you back, man.
I'm from Compton. That's what we do, man. That's what we do. Man.
Caught up in emotional infidelity, bruh. Oh, don't freeze on me. Don't freeze on me. Don't freeze on me. No. No, he froze on me. No, come on. Oh, boy, he froze on me. All right, we're going to get it back. Y'all stay tuned. I told you we got some bad weather here in Georgia in the A. So, boy, You see how the enemy does. You see how the enemy does? Right at the point, man, where we were getting into this, caught up in emotional infidelity. Basically, what he was saying is through social media, when we spend time. And let me say this. I'm not one to bash social media, because we're using social media platforms. We're using social media platforms. Yeah, I'm gonna ask my brother to go ahead, and matter of fact, let me send him the link one more time. Here he is. Okay.
Don't know what happened. The enemy.
Here he is. That's all right. Well, I explained we had some bad weather in the A. Not only that. You know how the enemy is, man.
Yeah.
You dropped this bomb, man, caught up in emotional infidelity, man. And I was explaining to the people that, we're not bashing social media, just like anything else. If you use something for the good, hey, it works. Mm-hmm. These platforms that we're using, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, we're using it for informative purpose. I call this edutainment. It's education and entertainment. But man, caught up in emotional infidelity, man. Let's park there for a second. Talk about that.
Okay. Now, here's what's interesting. A lot of times, couples will come to me, and it's not normally, but sometimes it's when it's a panic situation, and it may be the man or the husband reaching out. And something has happened, and now they want to do therapy, and I'm here for it. I tell them I will match your energy, and more times than I wish, it is often an act of infidelity that's happened. And what's interesting is that there won't be a physical, it won't be sexual. It's emotional, and it's interesting when I hear. I've heard men and women. It's interesting what I hear them say. Well, it wasn't cheating because I didn't have sex. No, that's not how that works. Because here's the thing that now in my research, there's a book called Why Ministers Fall, and it talks about how the role of infidelity impacts those that have been called to the gospel. And the way that the academics and the literature points it out is so clinical at its core, because what it says basically, it never starts physical. It starts emotional.
Yeah.
It starts emotional. And based off of that is where, it leads to the closeness. and whatnot. And so sometimes what ends up happening is that even if that's not your intention, it doesn't change the impact. And I say that in therapy all the time. Intention does not negate impact. And so if you find yourself going to somebody, to talk about your problems, that's emotional infidelity. If you're in a relationship, that person you're in a relationship with, that's your go-to person.
Yeah.
In a marriage, the only person that you go tell your spouse on is God.
Yeah.
That's it. That's it. But when you go outside of that, you've now opened the door that the enemy sees, and he's going to slit his way right up in there, because now you're going to start making, connections in other ways. And a lot of times, now emotional infidelity isn't just with a person that goes out and cheats with another person. Sometimes emotional infidelity happens when you marry and you look at how the person balances having family and friends. Happens there too. We think infidelity, we think automatically the other man, the other woman. But think about, going back, taking it biblical, when God said he's a jealous God. And I've gone back and forth in the research to say, okay, well, Lord, what is jealous versus envious? Because envy is one of those 7 deadly sins. Okay, well, is jealous a bad thing if God said that he's jealous? And say, okay, well, let's look at jealous. Envy is when I want what I want. Envy is when I want something that somebody else has. Jealous is when I want what I worked for, but I don't get it. Difference. There's a difference. So could it be, and the word speaks to this, you negated your first love. He talks about it.
Yeah.
So if I don't follow the order of God, my spouse, if I'm trying to put, fraternity organizations, academic pursuits in front of that, that's infidelity by definition. But we only think that it has to involve another person. There was anything that we put outside of the order of the covenant or alignment, if we're talking marriage, or the relationship agreement, if we're talking relationship, is anything that has to be compromised for that person. So it happens in a lot of different ways, but because it's not spoken on or exposed, it normally contributes to breakdown in relationship. And that's when people oftentimes have to end up coming to me and then having to see it that way. Well, I didn't see it that way. Well, that's why you're here. That's why you're here. Slow everything down to see this contributing to it.
Yeah. One of the things when I'm talking to younger pastors and I'm informing them that be careful with the attention that you are getting.
Yes.
Oftentimes I have seen when folks are kind of sliding down that bad scale, that bad slide, it's because they have taken the attention that's on them as if the attention is actually on them. And as I try to explain to them, the attention that's being given to you is the godliness that's in you.
Right.
So they're not necessarily attracted to you personally, but they're attracted to the godliness that you are presenting through your word, through your teaching. And oftentimes in the matters that I have dealt with younger pastors, male or female, they have slid into that emotional infidelity in a way where they got caught up on the attention, thinking that the attention was on them instead of what they represent. So I often warn people about be careful, basically you ain't all that. You're a good person, you're an attractive person, handsome, good looking, but a lot of what the attention is not you physically, it's not you personally, it's what you represent. And you got to be careful. You hold the mantle, and you need to make sure that you protect the mantle and protect the man or the woman from and have balance. So what you've been dealing with is balance, and that balance is in any type of relationship, work relationship, marriage, friendship, anything. There's got to be some balance there, Doc.
Absolutely. And And the thing that I tell people in therapy is you have to first establish, and this is a concept that you and I have spoken about, you got to establish your non-negotiables. You got to establish what are the things I'm just not going to negotiate on, and I have to build around how I'm built. If I build around how I'm built and I've established my non-negotiables, and if I layer that with understanding my purpose and functionality in the faith, then I've just created these 3 tiers of filters that if I run everything through those mandates, it takes care about 99% of any issue that may present itself. Now, I can say this as a practitioner, but more so as a husband and as a father. The first thing that I did was I wanted to establish, okay, God, how's this supposed to look? Again, that's the garden concept. And understanding that our role and responsibility. Interestingly enough, Miles Monroe spoke of this. He said when God created Eden, it was never his intention for us to leave. And we were supposed to take Eden. The charge is take Eden and bring it into the earth. That's the dominion mandate.
Wow.
So when we look at it from that concept, because we know we know the whole, operating, we hear dominion all the time, but we think dominion from a king relationship versus a warring authority one, meaning that wherever we go, we're supposed to dominate with our faith, with what we believe. We're supposed to go. I'm supposed to go into the hospital that I work in and surrounded with secular physicians, secular nurses, and dominate. That's what I'm supposed to do, is to take that in there, and with the power that operates in me by the Holy Spirit as a practitioner, I dominate patient care. I dominate treatment plan. I dominate, crisis intervention, because everything that I practice is based on my faith. And when I take that into the filter of all my relationships, I'm seeking God, thus superimposing into him. How's my dating supposed to look? How does my fatherhood look? How does me being a husband look? And when I know that, then what I understand is true covenant alignment. And when we understand true covenant alignment, there's a piece that comes from that. And I say this to my married couples all the time. You will see all the things that you need to be doing as a husband or as a wife. That will keep you so busy you really don't have time to critique what your spouse is or ain't doing.
Yeah.
He'll always point it back towards you and be like, okay, well, did you do this? Well, do this and do that. So what you find yourself doing is you're building around how he meant to build you initially based on your purpose and function. And as a result, it heightens your discernment about things that could be a potential threat, things that could compromise the covenant. I tell my wife all the time, I said, I've never experienced a relationship where I was with a woman and experienced God in that same relationship. This is the first time it's ever happened. I've never experienced God in an earthly relationship romantically until she came.
Wow,
but the reason why that happened, good brother, now this is important for our audience members that are looking to, everybody want to get married but not do the preliminary work. Well, we're going to do a little bit of the preliminary work here.
Yeah, man.
What's important is you want to be with someone that's complementary to your Christ. Not contradictory, complementary to your Christ.
You want to be with somebody who is complementary to your Christ.
To your Christ, yes, complementary. Because we're made, functionally different as man and woman. And if I have done the work, then God is going to, based on that creation and dominion mandate, that person that he made for me is there doing their work as well. And I love to tell this story. When my wife and I, when we got engaged and we were getting ready to move, and now we didn't live with her until literally the night we got married was the first time we actually were together in that capacity. So that was part of that, knowing how you built and doing it God's way. And he literally walked and kept us in that. my sons, when we were moving her from her old house into the house we would have as husband and wife, my sons made a observation, and it blessed me tremendously. My son said, as they were moving her library, my son said, Dad, they call her Mom. They said, Dad, Mom has the female versions of all the books you have. If I got Kingdom Man, she had Kingdom Woman. If I got Dad praying for his son, she got Mom praying for her daughters. So her library was comparable to mine. So when we came together, there were certain preliminaries, or, as we say in the academic, certain prerequisite classes had already been taken. So when we got together at the terminal degree level, because we've already done the 100 level classes.
You were evenly matched.
We were evenly matched. And the body of knowledge of the faith, of the word, of life, that's why our conversations are so intimate. Now, I also want to say this for your population as well. Intimacy is not what the world tells us in terms of we think automatically sexual. Intimacy, if you look up the word, is simply just closeness. That's what intimacy is, us being close. Now, of course, you got physical, emotional, relational, spiritual intimacy. You got those 4 domains of intimacy, but I don't want to say that word automatically. We think physical because that's actually the last as far as the most potent of intimacies. But just to see that she had done the individual work and I had done the individual work. So when we came together, we'd already had now a knowledge base that was complementary to each other. A lot of times we're contradictory. So a lot of times, people in the world say, opposites attract. I said, well, you can play that game you want to, but the Bible says otherwise. But even if opposites did attract, they don't marry. They don't marry.
True that.
So in that concept, particularly for men, something that God had revealed to me, and I've been saying this in therapy as of late, and it was beautiful when God revealed it to me about, how to find out relationally, how do you know the person to choose? How do I know the person to choose? And this is for men, but I think women can get something from this because they have to put themselves in position to be chosen. Now, when we go to scripture, good brother, and it talks about everything that Adam was doing, I always tell the men, Adam is an example of what you should be doing before you get married. Okay. First of all, you walking with God in the cool of the day. You and God are established. You got responsibilities. You got your own place to lay your head. Adam wasn't thinking about Eve. Wasn't thinking about her. Adam goes to sleep. Now watch what God does. Now, good brother, now you know how we get down. We swim in these waters.
Here we go.
When God showed me this, it took everything I had not to turn my house upside down. And just,
here we go.
All these years I've seen this scripture, grew up in the church, saw it, but I never saw it from these eyes until he said, now you're ready to see it.
Get ready, y'all. Get ready.
Okay. Adam goes to sleep. All right. The scripture says that God created the woman and presented her to Adam. Woman, her. Stay there. God created the woman and created her to Adam. Adam wakes up, sees Caesar. He says, this is bone of my bone, flesh of my flesh, woman. He calls her woman. So God said to me, why do you think I presented Eve to Adam? And when I started digging and I saw the wordplay here, he created woman, he presented her. Adam said that this is woman because she came from man. If Adam had not had the relationship with God, he wouldn't have recognized who she was.
Wow.
Notice what God, he made woman, he presented her. Her. Now, he didn't say he presented the woman.
Wow.
He presented her.
Wow.
If Adam does not have the relationship with God to know an idea of what it looks like, now he's in paradise. He knows God's handiwork. He knows God's not going to give me anything that ain't good for me. So let's take it a little bit further. What does the Bible say? He who findeth a wife findeth a good thing. The word also says, no good thing will he deny you. So when you look at how you intermarry the two, Adam, if he doesn't have a relationship with God, he can't recognize her. So when you bring that into 2024, where we go wrong as men is we make her, we don't know what her looks like. Now watch this. Watch this. Holy Spirit took it deeper. He named Eve. He named her. Eve is never referred to as she.
Never.
Hold on. No, she is. Watch this.
Yeah.
She's referred to as she. The first time she's referred to as she is when he blamed her for what he did.
In a negative fashion. That's right. That's what I was going to get to.
Okay. So
in a negative fashion, that's when the name she came in.
That's it. So and I did a post on this yesterday because it was so convicting. I said the wife that God has for you is it's a her, it's not a she. So as long as you got women around you, and who you gonna marry? Well, she does this for me, and she does that for me. And no, the woman you marry is a her. It's your job to recognize her and to be able to, if you line up with God, you recognize the woman. You recognize the woman because Adam did, but all that was contingent upon Adam having that relationship with God. And a lot of times as men, we go into relationships.
Yeah.
We don't have that relationship, so we don't know when it's God or it's the counterfeit.
Okay.
Or as I like to say, I married my wife because she was fine china, and I know the difference between fine china and paper plates.
Talk to me, man.
I know the difference.
Talk to me.
They both can hold they both can hold a meal.
Yeah.
This one right here, it looked good while it's doing it. It's set aside for special occasions.
And that fine china hold the heat real well.
That's it. And so a lot of times when we're looking at things relationally, if we don't know that garden concept, how did God create this to look? And part of the problems that we have in relationship is that the closer we are to that original garden concept, the more we'll see God's manifestation of what he intended for a relationship to have. And I tell my couples that whenever you have issues in your marriage, the first thing I tell them to do, number one, look at your relationship with God, because there's a correlation between your relationship with God and your earthly relationships. But then also look at how far are we away from that original design. For my couples that, my dating couples that cohabitate, don't judge. I'm your therapist. I'm here to help. But I let my couples who cohabitate know that part of the challenges you have is that you took a dating concept and you put yourself in a marital paradigm, and you don't have the maturity for it. In other words, you skip steps. So you opened it wide open to have marital related issues. You're arguing and fussing, and now you're questioning the relationship. Then you didn't do that before you moved in. Well, guess what? Your maturity has to match your emotions. Yeah. So when you're dating the way that God created for us to do it, you're able to have the maturity that ultimately leads you to where you can share intimate space. But when you just, don't pass go, don't collect 200 and go straight into cohabitation, you don't have the maturity to deal with the little personality quirks and the little stuff that used to be cute, now irritating. So now you're ready to leave and implode the relationship, but it never had a chance to be done the right way.
Yeah, because you've given them the marriage experience before you've gone through the steps. So I gotta turn the car a little bit. Two things.
Okay.
Number one, I want to make sure that you're okay, since we're in a therapy space. Seeing that big tag behind you, that Alabama Crimson Tide, that I know you are the number one Alabama fan in America. That Michigan, man, boy, let me tell you, they rolled that Tide.
It was overtime. It was a botched play. And you know what? Here's the thing. The fact that we at one time we were number 13, and nobody was, the dynasty is over, and we just crept right in. We hovered at 8, and at the right time we took down the 2-time national champion, who's also built by Bama, because you got Bama defensive coordinator. You that's kind of the joke we have. If you got a Bama assistant coach, you built by Bama.
Go ahead, guy. Go ahead. You know how to spin it, man. I give you that.
So just facts. So we knocked off number one.
Yeah.
And we were able to creep back in at number 4. And so we peaked at the right time. And there's so much, therapeutically in that. Sometimes just hang around. Just hang around. Don't get caught up in and just perform at the right time. And if you're gonna take somebody down, take down number 1.
Yeah,
take down number 1 and send them home. And so I'm it's going to be it's going to be a great year next year.
It really is.
Really a dominant force, and still my school, literally, education wise, and being a fan as well. So yeah, I'm
here for great football this year. Great football, Doc. Here's and many people have asked me to deal with this, and I said no, I don't do that, but I have to because I think you could speak to the mindset of what's behind this. We see how things have been going viral lately.
Yes.
About let me just use the word Cat Williams talking about different comedians. We see what's happening with how Taraji P. Henson has gone viral over some of her remarks, and it's been taken out of context. And I see now that Oprah has gotten into setting the record straight and this, but why is it lately that we see people wanting to air the behind the veil scenes? We even see it with the entertainers, the Bishop and Diddy and all of this. And I don't know anything, what I don't really look to see, okay, what's being said now, what's being said. I'm a fan of Shannon Sharp. I'm a first take fan. I love watching the dynamics with the sports talk. And, I love the podcast space. I love what he does in that space. He has a very interesting guest on. But that one just blew up. And I thought to myself, there's got to be something on the psyche of a person who all of a sudden wants, and then the people who come behind and just eat it up. What's behind that, Doc?
It's interesting, good brother. What's behind that? A couple of things. Trauma.
We just had last week. We just dealt with that subject.
Particularly, and that's a word that I've been very intentional, really, and I think since the pandemic, I've been very intentional about saying that word with boldness because we'll dance around it, and we don't recognize all the ramifications of trauma. And because I say this in therapy, all trauma isn't tragic. So a lot of times we think trauma, we think something on the scale of a 9/11, something on the nail of something on the scale of war. So we will operate in what I call dysfunctional normality, where we see dysfunction so much that we normalize it, and it then becomes attractive. And so a lot of times, and this is the issue with social media as well, it allows, it's kind of like texting, why I don't believe that you resolve matters through texting, because it sets up an avenue for one-sided dialogue.
Right.
It makes you think of like kids. If I can run to mommy and tell them first, then I control the narrative. And so what ends up happening is now people feel like taking another one-sided dialogue. So then they start going back and forth. And I'm going to be honest with you, brother, because you're my brother. And I was telling my wife, this is why, on my platform, like I don't speak recklessly.
Right.
Because I understand the power of this gift I've been given.
Correct.
When I thought about it, and this is something that we typically see within, the African-American culture, I couldn't think of any other culture in their representations where you wouldn't see Jerry Seinfeld going back and forth with Roseanne Barr. You wouldn't see that. And so this attraction that we have to I call it theatrics. We're attracted to the theatrics, and so what happens is we give it an audience. I always say drama has two parts, the audience and the cast. and you got to decide which one you're going to be. And so what happens is in this situation, and particularly being men, if men have issue with one another, we come together privately and have a conversation.
Okay, stop right there. That's key right there, Doc. See, you mentioned the word trauma, and that's when I listened to it and just didn't know who was going to be on. Just the mere fact that I'm a Shannon Sharp fan, and when I heard it, I saw him being taken back by it, but having to let it go. But then I kept looking at Cat Williams, and I went back and listened to it again, and then I was waiting for the response of others and of those who were talked about, and I saw they kept the high road, and I said, "There's a hurt that's deep within."
Yes.
That would cause another brother to do that with other brothers, because just like you said, it's why I stopped you. Men do things different. Hey, bro, I need to talk to you, man, about that situation.
Right.
We're not going to do this publicly. I've had situations where something has happened and it's been like, people were talking on this side, people were talking from this side, and it's like, you know what? Let me call this brother. Let's work this out, because for the sake of both of us in the public sphere, we got to settle this privately so that others don't fall in what they perceive to be something that's going on. I say this in therapy all the time, good brother. Two things. Whenever you see anger, and that's what you saw, anger, hurt is always the precursor to anger. You saw anger as a result of hurt, whatever that may be. So there was anger, hurt, and an opportunity to have it verbalized without it being interrupted or questioned. Because here's the thing, because having that one-sided venue, all right, it allows for one person to not only control the narrative, but also not to be questioned on it. Because normally when situations tend to get explosive in that dynamic, it's because somebody has questioned them and say, hey, I have a different perspective. Now, I say this in marriage therapy, couples therapy. It's never about the problem. It's about what it represents. So on the surface, it may be, I feel like you stole my joke. It's not about the joke being stolen. What does that represent? Lost revenue, lost income, lost opportunities, things that I felt like I should have had. I put in the work. And this is what we do in therapy, where I always can go deeper in a safe place. And those disclosures that typically won't come out publicly will come out in that private place. And so if that was a therapeutic environment, it would have been one of those situations that, as a therapist, which is why I've had opportunity to go on shows, but because the process of healing, because this is healing, what we do over here. Like this ain't theatrics, this ain't content creation. I tell people all the time, I'm not a content creator because the creator gives me my content. No, we heal.
Yeah, we heal over here. And so that can't be staged. That's a very intimate process. And so when you bring people in an environment where they can be not heard but listened to, and then definition can be given, because what happens is when we're hurt, and research backs this up, good brother, we think of the worst case scenarios. We come up with the theories of, like, we will sit and come up with these ideologies and these isms that somebody woke up this morning with the intention of coming to get me, and they're staying up. That's just the nature of human beings. But when we come, as the Bible said, come, let us reason together. When we come together and we can have a conversation, if that was your interpretation, brother, that wasn't what I meant. And then that way we can be unified. But then in the process of being unified, see, that's not attractive. It doesn't start the conversation. And I think the thing that for me has been interesting to see is how nobody has come to question anything that he said. Nobody's questioning, like, wait a second, okay, everybody's looking at all these people that you named, okay, but sir, you got to pass too. You got to pass too. So a lot of times, because we get so much information so fast, we're not critically thinking. So we just take whatever's given and how it may resonate with us, which is the dangers of social media, because then we start associating our own unresolved traumas and isms and issues. So now, most people can relate to being screwed over, taken advantage of, somebody stole something from you. So now you have that, what we call in sociology, you got group conformity and group polarity.
There it is. There it is.
That's
there
it.
it is. Let me stop you right there for a second.
Okay.
Because that's what I was going to say. We know that hurt people hurt people.
Yes, sir.
But then you have that hurt part of society that gravitates towards that hurt that they recognize in that person who they deem bold enough to spill the tea.
Yes.
Or to let it be known. So that group, which you just explained, that group now gravitates towards that. But then there's the other group who recognizes, no, we don't do that, and we're waiting to see, hey, how are we going to solve this? And you just explained it. Those two groups, what were they again?
Group polarity and group conformity.
Yeah, I don't understand it. It bothers me because, again, as our people, why are we spending time not only doing this, but adding to it? And then people, now having shows about what was said and I knew this long time ago, and I knew this, and let me tell you what I know, and let me tell you what I did. Listen, I spent 25 years as a police officer. I had a very thriving private investigation and security company in Tampa, and we had major events that my security team did. And I told guys up front, matter of fact, there were some guys I didn't even hire because they didn't pass the smell test. In this, I traveled with Maxwell for part of his tour years ago. And, the thing is, in my industry, and that's another thing that kills me. I see some people in the industry now coming and talking. That's a big no-no.
Yes.
But I've seen things that I'm taking to my grave because it does nobody any good.
Right.
It does nobody any good. If it was something that I needed to report, I knew the protocols to do that. But the other stuff, that's them. That's not what I'm there for. So I say all that to say, Doc, as we're getting ready to come to a close, how do we get people to understand that therapy is good for the soul? Therapy is good for long-term relationships. Therapy is good for good health. When you hold this stuff in and you hold on to the hurts from the past, it becomes toxic. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, absolutely. Particularly, people of color. I think that therapy definitely, and we've heard this, it's been stigmatized as, well, I don't want nobody in my business. But look at social media. You go on, somebody does something to you, you post it immediately. And why? Because that group polarity, group conformity. I'm wanting the attention. But here's the thing. I want attention without accountability nor responsibility. Because in therapy, you're going to get the platform, and it's a safe one, but you're going to get accountability and responsibility, because here we slay demons. And a lot of times, good brother, what ends up happening, and why therapy is such an involved process, I say oftentimes I have to address your trauma before I can even get to do the therapy. I got to go back to some of the deepest cuts and wounds that you don't even know that are still open before I can pour anything into you that really leads to healing, because your wounds are going to be your go-to places. And we're wounded in places that we don't even know because we normalize it. We've normalized divorce. We've normalized brokenness. Point in case, I say this in therapy all the time. We all love to talk about our resiliency. Everybody talks about resiliency. I got it out the mud. I came up. I'm grinding. In first question, what are we doing in the mud anyway if we're kings and Queens? Why are we in the mud? No, why? What is good about grinding? Because last time I checked, as far as the science behind grinding, that's taking something solid and turning it into a dust. So why do I want to take something solid? Even our language reflects our brokenness, but we don't catch it because it's it's catchy culture, context of words. So when you think about it, when you think about our mentality, when it comes to resiliency, we all want to proclaim, how we made it over, how we overcame, which has its place. But here's where we go wrong. We never address the thing that happened that made us have to be resilient. We love to tell the story, but we never tell our origin. And the origin is where the enemy wreaks havoc, because he knows he's not going to talk about the fact that he was sexually abused, but what he will talk about is how he runs through women. He'll never go to that origin. So in that realm, being able to slay those demons and look at those demons face to face. I say this to men. Because I see it more times with men than I do anybody else. And I always use myself as I'll say I'm my own crash test dummy. So I let people know that it's safe in therapy. I always say this: I know what my demons look like. I know my demons. And the fact that I know my demons, they know me. And I have conversations with mine. So when my demons materialize, I already know their intentions. I already know, the ramifications of what has happened because of them. So a lot of times we don't want to know our demons. We don't want to know our demons. I told a brother in therapy, if your demon is 44-inch hips, why do you think the devil just had 46-inch hips just go across your? Because he knows it. And what you don't address, in closing, I say this in therapy, what you don't address, the enemy will attack. What you don't face, you become.
Wow. You know what? And Doc, listen, I tell people when I'm dealing, I'm not a therapist, but I've done counseling, spiritual counseling. And I tell people oftentimes that a lot of times it's that 10-year-old child in you that's crying out, heal me. In order for you to be the productive 44-year-old man and husband and father, you got to go back and heal that 10-year-old child that got hurt. That 10-year-old young lady that had something happen, whatever it was, that came up in some sort of trauma. Until you deal with that, that is always going to rise up in the most inappropriate time. Am I right?
Absolutely. Because it's not addressed. It's, again, what you don't address. And it's a great battle strategy I see in therapy. If I know that your back door stays unlocked, why would I break down your front? I'm just going to come through the back door. And I'm going to wreak havoc and I'm going to leave. And because you're going to be so traumatized over the fact that I wreaked havoc, you won't ever ask what the point of entry was.
Y'all, he just dropped the bomb at the end, man. Dr. Winfrey, give me, how can people get in touch with you? And also, what's your Cash App, man? We got to put a blessing on Dr. Winfrey for this time, man. This knowledge ain't free, y'all. This knowledge ain't free. What's your Cash App, and how can people reach you?
Okay, well, my Cash App is, Lord, you're going to make me have to look it up. My Cash App is
that's all right. Go ahead. This is our show. I'm in full control.
You know what? Thank you, brother. I appreciate that. My Cash App is, Lord, let me see my profile. It's $ Valiant Therapy JW. So it's VALIANT THERAPY, and then my initials JW. So it's $ Valiant Therapy JW. That's my Cash App.
Gotcha. Listen, we want to be a blessing to our brother. Whatever you can, we want you to bless our brother. Listen, man, this ain't free. Let me tell you, I know. Good information. You go to the doctor and you got to pay for this stuff. So tonight we've given you just a touch of what this young man does. Again, I know for a fact how it will help you, because what you see produced tonight has come from talks through Dr. Winfrey. Again, how can people reach you?
Okay. Well, I'm across all the major social media platforms. Ironically, my biggest platform, only by God's grace, TikTok. I did not expect to have such a following, because I thought that, it wasn't, not that it wasn't the place, but my personality. I'm not that person, but just by putting out what God's told me to, and just being able to get the just people wanting to be fed. And so on TikTok is listed under Valiant Therapy. Valiant TikTok, Instagram, same Valiant Therapy, Facebook as well. Then my regular name, James Winfrey. And so that's the best way to get in contact with me. My website is valianttherapy.com.
Okay.
Anybody that reaches out to me, I'm a very personal practitioner. Everybody will deal with me, particularly, people call, and it's always funny when I answer the phone, they're talking to me about me without knowing that it is me. So I'm very hands-on, because I care about everybody's mental health and spiritual well-being. And I just think that, relationship is so important. So a lot of my population, as you know, has my personal number, text me directly. So that way we can get the heavy lifting and furniture moving going. So, I would love to be a blessing to whomever in whatever season is needing it. And I thank you, brother, for the opportunity just to share space with you. And
man, thank you, man. You have blessed us tonight. The comments are still coming in. People have been blessed. Brother Cornell, who is studying child psychology himself, child therapy. He's a big contributor to the Dr. Jeff Experience. We talk all the time about his work and encouraging him. We just thank you. We thank you so much for what you have contributed tonight. I told him, I said, man, y'all got to buckle up, because this is going to be something. We thank you for staying with us throughout the technical difficulties. And we're praying for all of those in the Atlanta area with this storm that we had. I saw some of the downed trees and all that kind of stuff. But again, thank you for all that you have done in my life and will continue to do in my life, my brother. And we thank you for the contributions that you're making into men, women throughout this nation to make them better. As I always say, good mental health is good physical health. Good physical health is good money wealth. So get your head right so you can get your body right, so you can get your life right. And through this brother, Dr. James Winfrey, Valiant Therapy. Get on TikTok. He's there. ValiantTherapy.com. He's on Instagram. Hey, man, listen. Man, my wife is she's retired now, Doc. So you pray for me.
Congratulations. Yeah, I saw it. 40 years?
Over 40 years, man. Over 40
congratulations.
Years. Yeah.
Congratulations.
Here's my sister LaFern, who is a life coach out of Tampa, Florida. And again, in business, she helped me in business while we were in Tampa. Again, okay, yeah, my sister, she's telling us, don't forget to push the like button. If you're on YouTube, make sure you subscribe, hit that bell so you know when we're coming on, and get in touch with Dr. James Winfrey at Valiant Therapy so you can become better. Listen, we got to go, y'all. It's 4 minutes over, and hey, man, time is money. We thank you all. God bless you. Hey, man, you know what I always say. Meet needs, solve problems. Tonight, we met needs and we solved problems only through Christ. We thank you so much. God bless. Take care, brother.
Thank you.